Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to this webinar by DP World and UAE UK Business Council. My name is Anders Kron, a Business Development Manager here for DP World UAE region. And I would like to welcome you to this webinar about UK trade and investment opportunities in Jebel Ali Port and Free Zone, and how DP World and JAFZA can facilitate access to international markets in the region. I would like to start with welcoming Mr. Ahmed Al-Haddad, our Chief Operational Officer for DP World UAE, for his opening keynote speech. Ahmed.
Thank you, Anders. Good afternoon from Dubai and good morning for people in the UK. A very warm welcome to this special webinar. We at DP World are extremely honored and privileged to partner with UAE UK Business Council to host this event. Our aim is really to showcase the capabilities of Jebel Ali and how it can help UK businesses grow their export to the region using Jebel Ali Logistic Hub and our current capabilities. The relationship with the UK goes for a very long time, and especially here for us at DP World, we're extremely honored by the visit last week from His Royal Highness, and also if we go back to the year 1979, during the first visit of Queen Elizabeth to our country, when Her Royal Highness inaugurated Jebel Ali Port. This is a proud moment that we still share with whoever come and visit us in Jebel Ali. We remain proud. It remains a proud moment for us. And Jebel Ali today is counted among the top 10 container terminals in the world. The British Embassy continues to work with Jebel Ali Free Zone and DP World to enhance business relationship and support UK business companies operating from the Free Zone. So we thank them very much for working hand in hand with us to help businesses really expand from Jebel Ali. DP World investment in the UK through London Gateway and Southampton have established a new era of partnership between the UAE and the UK. They've added value to the economy and support British companies by enabling efficient global trade. London Gateway have been such a successful project that we are adding even a further fourth berth, costing around £300 million to increase really supply chain resilience. It's a central pillar of Thames Freeport. Both DP World, Jebel Ali and London Gateway have raised the bar for integrated trade hubs globally. And it's a reference point for us wherever we go and showcase DP World. The bilateral trade between UAE and UK was worth around £6 billion in 2020, and Dubai contributed around 72% of this. There are reasons to hope that free trade agreement between our two countries will be possibly signed very soon. This will help us really expand our relationship. The UAE is the UK largest trading partner in the Gulf, and it is ranked 25th globally. Last year, the UAE have launched Operation 300 billion to develop the industrial sector and enhance its role in stimulating the national economy. It aims to raise the industrial sector contribution from 133 billion dirhams to 300 billion dirhams by year 2031. And our recent events in the UAE showcased our ambitious projects for the next 50 years, and it shows that we are going forward to achieve this goal. And going back to DP World and the capabilities of Jebel Ali as an integrated logistic hub in Dubai. Today we are a home of almost 9,000 companies, out of which we have more than 380 British companies in Jebel Ali Free Zone, employing more than 8,000 people. This shows the capabilities that we have here and the trust from British companies in the Free Zone. So we trade from beverages to steel, to minerals, and of course petrochemicals. The UAE is a key market for UK to expand their trade. The UAE is a key market for UK to expand their trade in the region. I know the UK have an ambitious ambition goal to reach to 1 trillion worth of goods and services by year 2030, and Dubai can play a significant role in this. Respected guests, by exploring ways of reducing any barriers to trade, we can move toward the opening of global trade that we all want to see. Dubai offers the most efficient gateway for British exporters to reach a market of 3.5 billion customers. It is also the largest domestic market in the region and the world's third largest re-export market. Dubai has set a benchmark in developing global custom work to provide traders and investors from across the world with a business-friendly custom services. This also we export wherever we operate as DP World. Only recently in January, we've launched a new digital solution that connects custom officials and traders around the world. Cargo's Customs by DP World provides seamless and one single window interface for all traders and custom operators around the world to connect with each other and have a seamless experience. The platform features a unique and highly sophisticated risk analysis system that replaces the traditional way of really doing customs. British companies will definitely benefit from this, especially when we sign the free trade agreement with the UK. DP World is perfectly really positioned to provide most efficient gateway for UK business exporter, whether from London Gateway or Southampton in the UK, or through Jebel Ali or any other ports that we operate between UK and the UAE. We are looking forward to expand the portfolio of UK businesses in Jebel Ali from 380. Hopefully, we can reach a much bigger number in near future, and we look forward to hear from you and design solutions together and build on the success we had in the past. And I look forward to attend the whole session and listen to other speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Now I would like to introduce our next speaker, who is Mr. Lord Udney Lister, the co-chairman of the UAE UK Business Council, for his introductory remarks.
Thank you very much, Anders, and I'm delighted to be speaking at this webinar, showcasing DP World and Jebel Ali and Jebel Ali Free Zone. DP World is one of the largest UAE investors in the UK. It owns and operates two of our deep sea ports, the Thames Gateway and Southampton, and has built up a sophisticated logistics chain around these two important hubs. I personally visited the Thames Gateway one when it was actually first being established. At that time, I was working for the Mayor of London, and I was the Chief of Staff to the Mayor, and I took him down to the port. And we were all very, very impressed at the way in which DP World had started that development on basically an empty site and turned it into an amazing hub. And that was back nearly 10 years ago. Now today it has changed again and is one of the most exciting ports one can go to. And it was great to hear that DP World announced a new investment of 300 million to expand their capacity by adding a fourth berth, and another 40 million to be spent down in Southampton on that port. And 2021 saw DP World UK ports handling a record number of containers. Both Southampton and London Gateway have now been awarded Freeport status as part of the Solent Freeport and Thames Freeport, respectively, reinforcing both ports' critical role in UK international trade. These investments demonstrate the strength of both the UK and the UAE as great global trading hubs, as well as the strength of trade and investment that takes place between our two countries. Last year, MULTIMODAL announced 10 billion of investment into the UK over the next 5 years in areas such as life sciences, technology and infrastructure. and the strategic investment partnership signed by our Prime Minister and the UAE's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed last September will encourage closer commercial partnership between both countries in sectors as diverse as agri-tech and edtech. The partnership between the UK and the UAE also extends towards protecting our planet from the impact of climate change. Last week, Prince William was in Dubai to promote the Earthshot Prize, and I was so delighted that DP World is backing this important initiative by offering £1 million to 2 projects aimed at protecting marine ecosystems. As you will hear from subsequent speakers, Jebel Ali Port and Free Zone have been a major catalyst for Dubai's growth over the last few decades, and it has built an enviable reputation as a major international business hub. It is an attractive entry port for UK companies looking to establish to the UK, UAE and the wider Middle East region, or to establish operations there. I look forward to hearing more about what Jebel Ali Port and Free Zone have to offer during this webinar. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Lord Unilister. So next step, I will give a short presentation about DP World and who we are and what we are doing here, both in the UAE, in Dubai, and in the overall global perspective. So first of all, a little bit about Dubai. We are the trade and business hub of the Middle East. We are the gateway to this region and a hub for the GCC, Africa and India subcontinent. We are connecting the world to a regional population of more than 3.5 billion consumers. And that is one of the key, you can say, objective incentives why we have over 8,600 companies here in Jebel Ali Free Zone, is to reach this key market with a very sizable population and consumer goal. The key message I want to highlight here is that Dubai has always been striving to improve and make things easier for our traders and investors and come up with new solutions for their requirements. Because we are a small market, and to compete in this regional market with much bigger markets, we need to be agile and flexible and come up with new solutions and really lead the line in terms of the developments. So we always look how we can improve and make things easier. Short summary of DP World, what we're doing. We aim to be the world's leading smart logistics provider. And to do this, we focus on 4 core business areas. Ports and terminals, where we started in 1972 with Mina Rashid. Marine services, which is an extension of our marine activities here in Jebel Ali and UAE, but we also have this in other locations around the globe. Economic zones, which provide the optimal environment zones within logistics activities across the world. And logistics, where we connect our infrastructure with technology to make trade flow. If you look at our global network, we are present across the world, both in Europe, UK, as we have mentioned, but Middle East, India, Africa is our big markets, but we're also present in North and South America. So we have a global presence across the world and where we can scale and serve our customers globally. So we touched on, we are a big investor in UK. Southampton is UK's most productive port. And London Gateway is the latest deep sea port with an integrated logistics park serving London and the surrounding regions. So what is unique with this is that DP World, we can provide with our customers with logistics and port services both in UK and in the UAE, in the wider region from UAE as well. So like we said, first mile and last mile logistics, we can provide our customers both here in Europe and here in the Middle East. If you look at the trade between UAE and UK, we see both that previous speakers have mentioned that it's a very strategic objective to increase the trade between UK and UAE for both countries. And we see steady flows of cargo from UK to UAE and wider re-exports into the wider region in the Middle East, Africa and India as well. So some of the top imports is foodstuff, construction material, electrical machinery, and spare parts and cars as well. So here we see a steady flow of cargo from UK to Dubai, and then from Dubai either processed or stored before redistributed into the wider region. Jebel Ali Free Zone, we have also, as Ahmed said before, a very large group of UK companies based here in JAFZA, over 385 companies. They have over 8,000 employees here in Jebel Ali Free Zone as well. And the key commodities here that you can see is mineral fuels, steel, electrical machinery and equipment, and food and beverage. So this is some of the big exports from UK to UAE, but also to the wider Middle East region as well. So here we are looking at how we can develop and grow this trade further. And this is a very interesting slide, I would say, that from Dubai, which you probably well know with Emirates Airline as well, is that we are very well connected across the world, and we can reach over 65% of the global GDP within an 8-hour flight. So this is the strategic location that we are really benefiting from as well, and where we can open up those different markets that we're serving from Jebel Ali. And we both have the, you can say, the airline connectivity with Emirates, but also the sea connectivity with the Jebel Ali port and all the services that we have from Europe, Far East, and into the different regional markets as well. And this is where we can see that you have the big market potential for UK companies that you can serve via Jebel Ali, that you can bring your products, export it into UAE and Dubai, for example, store your products in Jebel Ali port. Either you do some labeling, processing, added value before you ship it out to other local markets or into Africa or into India, the subcontinent, for example. But this is where you have the big potential. And from Jebel Ali, what you really can, the advantage is obviously that it's much shorter shipping service time from Jebel Ali into India or Africa from UAE rather than from UK. And especially in today's uncertain supply chain, that helps UK companies then to serve local and regional consumers much better than if you send your cargo directly from UK. And it's also much more likely that you know when your products will arrive, and the predictability of your products arriving for your consumer is much more important. So that is one of the main advantages. And this is also a very interesting slide, like we touched on. It's really remarkable, the growth that we have seen in Dubai and Jebel Ali over the last 50 years. What's ever happened? And we have always, the key thing here that you have to think about is we have always been striving to understand our customers' needs and requirements and find new solutions for them. So that has always been driving DP World and Jebel Ali forward. Is okay, we're listening to our customers. What is their requirements? What is their challenges? How can we come up with new solutions for them and help them? And this ease of doing business and focus on our customers' requirement is a key success factor for Jebel Ali and DP World. Our global footprint of logistics, economic zones, ports, and marine services means that we can also serve our customers, as I said, wherever they are, and we can support them with their growth at a global scale. So, for example, we can provide UK companies with logistics services in UK and help them via exports via our terminals in UK. Once the cargo would arrive in Jebel Ali, for example, we can provide them with warehousing, logistics services, value-added services, but we can also connect them to the regional market via our own feeder services, for example. And then we have also in India, for example, we have the port operations, we have the warehouse operations. We can really provide our clients with an end-to-end solution. Either it will be in Middle East, Africa, or India. Key highlight, of course, is Jebel Ali Port, the largest regional port and the biggest port between Rotterdam and Singapore. We can handle all kind of cargo. So the thing here that you can see, which is key for UK companies, would be, for example, we have the container terminals where we can handle containers, obviously. We have the general cargo, but we have also ro-ro for the cars, for example. Dubai is a very big distribution hub for new cars and also for spare parts, and this is a key industry for UK companies exporting to the region as well. But we also handle a lot of liquid petroleum and chemical products, for example. So this is also potential for UK companies looking at the Middle East. Again, a very key success factor for Jebel Ali as a distribution hub have been our connectivity. So we have a very strong sea connectivity, which means that your exports from UK can arrive here easily, quickly, and you have a lot of options, and there's a lot of competition. You have, even though the sea freight today is quite high, you have options at least on which shipping lines you can choose. And the same from Jebel Ali. You have a lot of different options to serve your wider region here in the Middle East. And same towards Asia. And then, of course, we're also benefiting from having the new airport, Al Maktoum International Airport, just next to Jebel Ali Port and Free Zone, which connects us with over 30 international cargo lines, and also provide us, our clients, with the option in terms of logistics and servicing the region. And last is the trucking option. So you can truck from Jebel Ali across the Middle East to the key markets. So you have those three multimodalities are here. But we also have in the future, in the near future, in the next 1 or 2 years, we have the Etihad Rail, which will connect Jebel Ali Port and Jebel Ali Free Zone to the wider GCC network of rail, leading up to Saudi Arabia and the rest of the GCC market. So that is also something we're looking forward to. Will help our connectivity and our supply chains for our customers. And then we as Deep World Logistics is our part of our business unit, is our in-house logistics provider. So as I said, this is a freight forwarding warehousing company which can provide you with services and logistics services both in UK, but also here in Middle East and in other local and regional markets. This can provide you with end-to-end solutions as well. Just a little bit information about the JAFZA solutions and benefits. And in total, we cover 57 square kilometers of land here in Jebel Ali Free Zone. And currently, we have more than 8,600 companies set up here in Jebel Ali Free Zone as well. And the key question is, of course, why we have so many companies set up here. And this is what I've highlighted before, is the ease of doing business in Dubai, in Jebel Ali specifically, combined with the connectivity and the infrastructure that we provide here as Deep World and Jebel Ali Free Zone. This helps our clients to reach those markets in a more competitive way, where they can have options of distributing across this wide region and reach this 3.5 billion market, which we cover. And here you also see a short summary of the benefits of the Free Zone companies. So companies who are set up here in the Free Zone, they can have 100% ownership. But the main thing which we see is also the 0% import duty. So if you import your products into the Free Zone, you can store it, you can process it, and then you can re-export it without having paid any customs duty. And of course, as well, a key benefit is the 0% corporate tax for all our investors in the Free Zone as well, which is valid for 50 years and has a renewable concession. But it's also combined with the flexibility on the, you can say, on the labor side, and how easy it is to get a visa and for your employees, how easy it is to find people and so on, and having flexibility there as well. So it's a key package for our clients here in Jebel Ali, where you benefit from these different incentives. Just want to highlight a little bit on the food clusters, or the JAFZA industrial clusters. Food is obviously very big cluster, and it's very relevant with the Gulf Food event going this week. So we have over 500 companies here in the food industry, and they are doing everything from warehousing and storage of food products for distribution across the region, but they also manufacture products here. So we have Nestle, we have Mars, we have a lot of different snacks and food processing happening in the Free Zone, and then which is distributed across the markets as well. Another key cluster for the UK companies is the automotive and the spare parts, where we have also a very big hub here in Dubai and in Jebel Ali, where you can store your cars, spare parts, and then you can have them distributed across the markets when you need it. And again, you benefit from the same Free Zone incentives as I mentioned earlier, that you can bring them in without paying any import duty, and then you can distribute them to the regional markets from there. Third cluster that I just want to highlight is the chemical cluster, which is another very important cluster for us, where we see a lot of chemical companies setting up in the Free Zone and in the port, where they do blending, packaging, labeling, and so on, and then they distribute and using the Deep World and Jebel Ali port and connectivity to reach the key markets in the region. So this is really just some example of the industries that benefit from our location ease of doing business, and connectivity to reach those regional markets. Change what is possible. So we as DP World want to change what is possible and create smart solutions to facilitate trade across the globe. Again, we want to highlight that we want to hear from UK exporters how we can help them and support them with market access into the wider region and come up with new solutions and expand the trade between the two countries. Now I just want to finally touch on a few initiatives that we also have and working on. And as I said before, ease of doing business is a key element of Dubai and Jebel Ali for the success that we have seen and the competitiveness in the region. So for example, Dubai Trade is an online platform which our clients and investors in Jebel Ali Port and Free Zone use for all the services that we provide them from the government side. So more than 950 services are available online, which makes it much easier for companies operating, especially in the last 2 years when the pandemic, and they can do everything online. From visas to license renewal, everything can be done online. So that is really helping them operate. Another very interesting platform that we developed over the 2 last years during the pandemic is an online platform called Dubai. And that is really looking at how we can connect buyers and sellers online, because a lot of buyers from Africa used to come to Dubai, buy their goods and then send it back to Africa for their sale there. But since they couldn't travel in the last 2 years, we created this online platform as a solution where they can then source their products in Dubai. DP World provide them the logistics services and ship it out to the different markets. So we have launched this now in Rwanda and adding markets to it as well. So this is very interesting new initiatives that we developed. And then, of course, e-commerce is also another industry that has been booming in the last 2 years with the pandemic. And this is where we also see where we look at how we can improve and come up with new solutions to make it easier for the industry to benefit from this and really be able to serve the wider region both by sea and air freight as well. So this has also been very interesting developments. And then one of the key projects that we are working on is the redevelopment of container terminal 1 here in the port, where we're looking at now that we have a quayside access for industries that would need to have an investment, for example, a plot of land in the port. They can now have access with 14 to 60 meter draft. And this is something that we're also exploring with potential new investors, either in the grains, chemicals, could be biofuels or storage. So this is also a new project that we're working on here in Jebel Ali. And then finally, as part of the support of the reaching the Dubai's 2 trillion target of trade by 2025, we're also looking at how we can connect different bridges to different markets via Dubai and really focus on increased cargo flow, how we can increase the foreign investments and continue to enhance Dubai's competitiveness as well. And then, as a short summary of this presentation about DP World and Jebel Ali, I just want to highlight the key things that we want to focus on, and this is really the market potential that you have here for UK exporters, covering a market of more than 3.5 billion consumers from Jebel Ali and via Jebel Ali, and that we as DP World, we can provide you with services both in UK and in the last mile as well, so in the UAE and the wider Middle East, India and Africa region. So this is really the key 2 points that we want to highlight in today's market. And we would obviously be very interested to talk to UK exporters who are looking at how to reach those markets and how we as DP World can support them and help them doing this successfully. So now I would like to hand over to Bradley Jones, the Executive Director of UAE UK Business Council, for a short panel discussion about how UK companies can realize the business potential with Dubai's trading ecosystem. Thank you, Bradley.
Thanks, Anders, and thanks for inviting us to join DP World on this webinar. For those of you who don't know, the UAE UK Business Council is a thought leadership organisation where we bring business leaders, academics, entrepreneurs together from both countries to talk about some of the barriers to doing business and also the emerging trends and opportunities. Today, for the panel discussion, I'm going to be talking to two sort of business leaders and thought leaders about the opportunities presented by Jebel Ali Port and Free Zone for UK companies. And I'm going to start by talking to an SME, because I think some of the people dialing into today's webinar are from SMEs based in the UK. And I would like to introduce Chris Pigthall, the CEO of CPL Aromas. Now, CPL Aromas is a family-run business, and like the UAE, it celebrated its 50th anniversary last year. They're a family-run fragrance house, I believe the largest fragrance-only fragrance house in the world. And from its small origins in the UK, it now has over 700 employees all around the world. And one very interesting aspect of their work is that they're very focused on sustainability and reducing the impact of carbon emissions in the fragrance industry. Something I think that is very relevant to the UAE since it will be hosting COP28 here in 2023. So Chris, I'd like to hand over to you and first of all ask you, I know you've been in Dubai now for over 15 years. What was your decision-making process that resulted in you establishing operations in Dubai and in Jebel Ali Free Zone? How did you get to making that decision?
Yeah, Bradley, thank you for that. We've been traveling, we've been here 15 years. I guess maybe 10 years before that, we've been traveling to Dubai as kind of traveling salesmen, coming to the region, selling our fragrances, manufactured in the UK. We're a perfume company. We're a B2B company selling perfume concentrates to any manufacturer who needs a product, who makes a product that needs a smell. So Dubai, the UAE, has a very rich heritage of perfume. It's part of the culture. It's part of the real passion in the UAE for fragrances, part of the heritage and the culture, as I said. And it's interesting, over the last 15 years, actually the Western world has really taken a lot of kind of influence from the UAE and from the Middle East in terms of fragrances. If you look at fragrances by Tom Ford and other houses based on oud, based on other ingredients, a lot of them are based on kind of things that have happened in the UAE and the Middle East over many, many generations. So there's a great love and understanding of fragrances here. So I guess that was the reason, to come to the Middle East is a very substantial fragrance market. And within the Middle East, really, Dubai, the UAE is the center of that. So we were coming here as traveling salesmen, wanting to put down roots. In our business, it's really important to understand what a customer wants in his fragrance. If you ask a customer, what do you think vanilla smells like? If you ask that in every country in the world, they'll give you a different answer, or they'll give you a different description. So we had to be here to really understand what the customers wanted. So we looked where to put down roots. We had a few options in Dubai. We wanted a free zone, and we had a few options. And one of our best decisions, definitely, was choosing JAFZA and Jebel Ali. We came here probably 15 years ago, set up 2 small offices, and then made the big decision about 5 years ago to take our own plot of land, to build our own facility, and actually to become the first and still the only company in Dubai manufacturing fragrances. So from here, we're doing much more than just warehousing, much more than distribution. We're buying in raw materials from all across the world, bringing them into Dubai, where we have a team of perfumers and 100 other development people, chemists, research scientists, and what have you, creating new fragrances that we then manufacture in Jebel Ali for export to many regions, but predominantly India, Pakistan, and everywhere in the GCC. So really, Jebel Ali didn't seem it at the time, but was the obvious choice. And boy, we made the right decision.
Great, thanks, Chris. I just want to pick up on that last point you made, actually, because Anders' presentation focused towards the end on the fact that companies decide to base themselves in Jebel Ali Free Zone because they can use it as a springboard for international growth. So you mentioned that now you're exporting to the GCC, India, and the wider Middle East from Jebel Ali Free Zone. Was that part of your original ambitions when you based yourself there, or is it something that evolved over time?
No, totally. I mean, predominantly, you know, where you manufacture, I guess it's good to have a domestic base as a market. So in the UAE, we have a very good domestic base. So that made Dubai obvious, but it was always the plan to export from here, and we've done it very successfully since then.
Great. One final question for you, Chris. What advice would you give to companies similar to your own, from, you know, relatively small family-run businesses in the UK that are looking to take their first tentative steps in Dubai, but don't quite know how to go about it? What kind of reassuring messages would you give to them?
I mean, really, we just found the whole process, you know, very, very easy. You know, I'm group CEO, but when I came over 15 years ago, I was by myself here, and I literally just drove myself to one of the to one of the buildings down in JAFZA where the admin centres are, and met a few people, made a few contacts, and they made all the paperwork extremely, extremely easy. And really, since then, we've, you know, touch wood, never had a problem with things like you're very unsure about, like visas for bringing in staff from all over the world. That's a bit scary when you first get here, but actually the reality is it's really, really simple and easy, you know, and all the things kind of promised in the brochure are real, you know, and you know, so we had high expectations, and we weren't let down.
Great. Well, thanks very much for that, Chris, and I wish you continued success over the next 50 years as well.
Thank you very much.
I'm now going to hand over to Joe Hepworth. Joe runs the British Centres for Business in Dubai, which is a long-established and very reputable organisation for which focuses on helping foreign companies establish operations in Dubai. Joe, just to begin with, I'd like you to just give us a brief introduction on BCB, and then maybe tell us why, at the moment, we're seeing an upswing in the number of British companies making inquiries about setting up and establishing operations in Dubai in general, and Jebel Ali Free Zone in particular.
Sure, thanks, Brad, and hello to everyone. And I hope you can see me okay. I think I'm a bit silhouetted because there's the light behind me, but you're not missing much, so don't worry. But no, thanks for the introduction. So British Centres for Business, BCB. We started life in 2013, actually at that time as a child of the UAE UK Business Council and its sort of previous guise, where there'd been a lot of discussion about supporting additional support for British SMEs entering the UAE and needing additional horsepower beyond the walls of the embassy. And from that initiative, and funding from the British government and some very good support from the Dubai government, mainly through Dubai FDI and Dubai SME, the economic department, we came to life in late 2013, early 2014. And since then, we've helped thousands of UK companies across all sectors, particularly at the SME end, but even some FTSE 100 firms with all elements of market entry. We have a market entry incubator here that's helped 50 companies set up in the UAE, and that's where Dubai FDI and Dubai SME have been heavily involved. And since 2016, we've delivered over £100 million of export wins for UK exporters trading into the region. So I'd like to think we've got a good perspective on sort of UK PLC in the region. We are, you know, daily dealing with companies of all shapes and sizes engaged in that. And as I think you touched on there, Brad, there does seem to be a bit of wind in the sails at the moment, and has been for a couple of years, and notwithstanding obviously the difficulties of the last 2 years. But you know, why are you at UK companies looking here? And I think it's for a lot of the reasons that have already been discussed by, I think, all the speakers, that increasingly Dubai, UAE and Jebel Ali are looked on as the ideal hub to be accessing the wider region. You know, it's as simple as that. The connectivity that the whole emirate provides, the whole country provides, places like JAFZA provide to do business into Africa, into East Africa, into the subcontinent, the rest of the Gulf, North Africa, the Central Asia, is unparalleled. And there is also, and I think, you know, Chris mentioned this, you know, he's got a decent domestic market here as well as producing here for the region. And I think, you know, some companies are surprised by what is, you know, a small country of sort of similar size to London, actually in the amount of procurement and purchasing that's going on. And it does provide a good place to set up your company, to do business, to have production here, both for the local market and for the wider region.
Thanks, Joe. I mean, that's a very interesting point, isn't it? Because when we think about free zones, we tend to think of them as places where you establish manufacturing operations for re-export only. But obviously, from Chris's summary of what he achieved with CPL Aromas, there's that ability to use JAFZA to grow your own domestic market as well as your international market. And in your experience, is that what British companies are doing when they establish themselves in free zones in the UAE?
Yeah, look, and I think firstly, and Anders sort of presented some of the features of JAFZA that appeal around. I mean, there was a whole slide there on the sort of the customs free element around the ownership, and obviously ownership laws have changed subsequently, but JAFZA was probably the first mover on that. And obviously now with JAFZA, rather DP World being such a prime mover in the UK as an investor with London Gateway, Southampton, and the former P&O estate, it's seen as a trusted entity. You speak to my parents in the UK, and they remember P&O. I'm saying I used to work for P&O. Actually, I used to work for P&O Ned Lloyd. So I think there are a lot of sort of touch points there that sort of a familiarity and a comfort of setting up in a part of the world that still isn't as well known as it might be. And sort of features like that are just offer security.
Great. One final question, Joe. Similar one to the one that I asked Chris. As a market entry advisory organisation, what advice would you give to British companies starting out on their journey of inquiring about the opportunities for establishing operations in Dubai?
I think it's very simple, and as Nike say, just do it. I mean, there's no substitute for getting on the ground and getting started. Of course, you will always look at risks and costs and what ifs and all of the things that could go wrong and mitigate against it. But that's the same with anything in life. There's business risk in everything we do. Entities like the BCB, like your organization, Brad, the Business Council, and of course like JAFZA, can all mitigate that risk, can all help to clarify situation, provide security. But that's one of the reasons we set up our incubator platform, was to provide a sort of a hosted soft landing for companies here to hold their hand, keep them out of trouble for a few years whilst they get the machine started. And so I think as Chris has sort of testified, there's no he sounds like he was a bit of a pioneer coming out here, was it 16 years ago, and doing it. Now there's such an array of support, and there's kind of no excuse not to. Flights are coming back. You can fly to pretty much the whole of the UK within half a day now. This is a surprisingly easy place to do business, and by not being here, you're missing out on a big prize.
Great, thanks for that, Joe. And I'll now hand back to you as you have a few questions for some of our panelists.
Yes, that's correct. So first I would like to ask Lord Udney-Lister, what is your expected timelines for GCC UK trade agreement, and what impact do you think that can have on the trade between UK and the GCC countries?
Thank you, Anders. And sorry, it took me a minute to get my video back on again. The plan is to start the GCC discussions within a couple of months. The consultation has now largely been completed, so it's now moving to the negotiating stage. So I think the plan is to start that in about two to 3 months' time, and then that'll start moving from there. I mean, it'll go fairly slowly for a while as these things get sorted out, but it's started. The important thing is not that. The important thing is that the consultations started at this end, and that's a process that has to go through Parliament, and it's a precursor to it all. So it's all underway. I think that's the best way of describing it, and I think we're going to go through a period now where it'll go fairly quiet as these things get sorted out behind the scenes, and then they'll reappear hopefully. But it's very, very exciting. And of course, There are more aspects to this. I mean, on the one hand, there is the whole need to get because the GCC is the customs union, but there's also a lot of other things that people want. People want market access, they want other things, which are all issues which will start to come into that mix. And that'll be part of the feedback that British companies will have given to the negotiators.
Thank you. Do you think any specific industries that could benefit from a free trade agreement, especially on the UK side, on the export side? Or?
Well, my view, and it's always been my view, that with the UK tilt toward the Indo-Pacific, and that's a very clear tilt, which is now policy having left Europe, the logical gateway to that tilt is Dubai. That is the place where logically you would think about going to open up your office as you face east. So I think a lot of businesses will be quite excited by that prospect, and the easier it is to do business in Dubai makes it easier as you go further east, which is not, some of those markets are not easy markets to work in. So you need to be fairly close to them, and of course, you can also access quite a few of those in Dubai because a lot of the key players are in Dubai. So lots of reasons why people will benefit from this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bradley, I just wanted to ask you as well, what is the latest trends you see in the trade flow between UK and UAE? And do you think, what do you think is any specific sector that you can benefit from and growing?
Yeah, there are a few very defining factors that describe what's happening at the moment. The first is that the UAE is an economy in transition. There is rapid economic diversification taking place here, so that industries that were, very early stage, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, are now really coming to fruition. So just to name some of those industries, advanced manufacturing, for example. Agri-tech. You mentioned earlier that we're in Dubai today when Gulf food is taking off, and the food and drink imports via JAFZA are one of the biggest commodities. But the agri-tech industry is really taking off here in a big way. AI, which cuts across all industry sectors, technology, life sciences, edtech. So for UK companies dialing into this webinar, one thing to be aware of is this is becoming an increasingly diversified economy, and it's moving up the value chain as well. I think we're seeing the significant improvements in ease of doing business, with a lot of regulatory changes taking place in the UAE over the last few years, which have made it much easier for British companies to establish themselves here, either onshore or offshore. And for UAE investors looking at the UK, I mean, they're now looking at opportunities in the UK through a different filter. As Lord Audley Lister mentioned, Mubadala have committed £10 billion of investment over the next 5 years. The Strategic Investment Partnership offers collaboration across a whole range of new sectors. So they recognise the UK's increasing focus beyond Europe to Asia and other markets. And that presents an opportunity for large UAE corporates. And they're also increasingly looking outside of London and the Southeast when they're looking at investment opportunities. So I would say that the emerging sectors and the emerging trends are in those industries where there's value addition, a particularly strong technology focus, and where there are industries where the UAE can be a hub for the wider Middle East and Asia region.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sounds interesting. And then a final question, Jo. I don't know if you had Gulf food, but what is your view on the opportunities for the British F&B sector in the Middle East and Africa? Any specific market or sector that you would want to highlight as a good opportunity? Or?
On my way to Gulf food, I'm at Emirates Towers, and I'll be there in after this, and I'm heading straight for the AHDB, the what is it? The Agricultural Horticultural Development Board. So the British farming, and the reason I'm going there is they're a client. They're somebody we look after in the region, and I think, look, I'm not here to talk about meat, but why is that? Why is that a successful product for the UK in the region? Why are they using Dubai as the gateway? And it's the same whether you're selling lamb, confectionery, you know, free from whatever, consumers around here value quality. Consumers around here value provenance. They like to know that, you know, these in this case of lamb, the sheep were reared on the hills of Cumbria, and you can actually check back to that. Obviously, then there's the requirements there around the halal and the whole certification. And I know that's somewhere where you guys are very active, making sure that the imports are compliant and meet all the regulatory requirements. So I think, you know, throughout that food and beverage industry, which is so big for the UK and big in this part of the world, those features of sort of traceability, provenance, quality are fundamental. And if, you know, if any of the participants on the call are in that, you know, I always say it sounds cheesy, but put a Union Jack on your packaging. It makes a big difference. It shows where it's from. You know, it's not a cheap thing to do that. That will help you stand out. Similarly, you know, well, not similarly, but on a related thing, so many of the big importers here, the big supermarkets, even Carrefour, even the French have sourcing offices in the UK. So if you're supplying into Lulu, which is I think the biggest in the region, you need to deliver your goods as far as Birmingham, and they've got an in-house consolidator there, Y International, who will then take it up and ship the containers through to Jebel Ali. So that food and drink supply chain is really, really well established. You've got lots of buyers, lots of distributors already in the UK. So as a small supplier there, you don't need to worry about, crikey, now I've not booked a 20-foot before, I don't need a 20-foot. You can just take it to the supplier. But yeah, I think it's all around that sort of authenticity of products and ingredient that makes UK food and drink stand out here.
Great, thank you. Enjoy the rest of Gulf food for you then. Let's hand over to Bradley then for a last thank you note and closing remarks as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Anders. Well, first of all, thanks to DP World for being such a supporter of the UAE UK Business Council. We appreciate that very much. I think this is, you know, this has been a very timely webinar. You know, as Joe mentioned, flights out to Dubai are full again. Supply chains and logistics chains are reopening again after a very difficult 2020 and 2021. This is really a golden opportunity for harnessing the new opportunities for UK UAE collaboration in international trade. It's been a really insightful webinar. I'm sure we'll get lots of inquiries from people asking to see the presentation that you gave, Anders. What we're going to do is we're going to put a recorded version of this webinar on our website and through our social media channels. That'll take us a couple of days, but to all of those who've dialed in, please watch out for that. We'll send a notification round of when the recorded version is available. I will also, at the end of the webinar, put our contact details so that we can all be contacted if you have any further inquiries. So thanks once again to all of our speakers and panelists for today's webinar, and wish you all the very best in your future endeavours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad.
Very much, everyone.